welcome back to Visited by Voices. As is becoming a habit, not quite live. This is the second installment of Obscurity Report, where we're looking at films that are underrepresented and a little bit harder to find, and reevaluating them or evaluating them for the first time, depending on where we're coming from. I'm joined today by my co-host Sam.
What is this thing?
We'll get to that. Yeah, I'm joined by Dan from Flesh Wound Radio. I don't know where
Hail
radio
Dolores.
I just always do that.
Hail Dolores,
Hannah,
Bride of Satan. That's all I've got.
I wrote that down. That stuck out.
Christian Hannah Horror is also here.
Hey guys, what's up?
Love the devil horns. Jay the Stingray.
Hello.
And B-Movie Mike.
What's up, guys?
So, Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. It's a 1980 adaptation of the Marvel comic book Tomb of Dracula by Toei Studios in Japan. Came out theatrically there in 1980, and by 1983 it started to appear on cable in America, and was also, at the end of that year, issued by Vestron Video as a video cassette that made its way into video stores, which is how I discovered the film. Sometime in the late 80s, I rented this thing, and I've often said to you guys that I haven't drank since 1991, and I've never done any drugs, but I did this film at that time. So I'd also like to just preface by saying horror comics were really big for me as a kid. I'm not a big comic book guy in general, but what I mean by that is superheroes really weren't foundational to me. But things like DC's House of Secrets, and even older Charleston Shook Comics, Ghost Tales, were very instrumental for me. But if there was one title that really, really, really was the thing I always looked for at the swap meets, the yard sales, and the used bookstores, which is where you find these things, it was Tomb of Dracula. This is issue 6, back when Gene Colan was still writing the comic before it was taken over by Marv Wolfman, whose run from the teens through its end in issue 71 is kind of legendary. It's the longest running single story horror title until The Walking Dead. But as you can see, like, if you saw the movie, you'll know that they actually did adapt this story, with one exception, which this cover is a perfect example of. There is Blade, the vampire killer.
Yeah.
Blade would have made this better.
They replaced Blade in the film with a dog. I'm going to let that just hang out there. And they also didn't deal with Hannibal King or many of the subplots involving other vampire lords. So I want to go around the table and say, if this was your first time, scream it out. If you've come across it, if you've heard of it before, whatever your history with Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. Sam?
Man. Yeah, this was the first time I've ever seen this, and I've watched old school anime, and here's my cat because he's right on time. Yes, I know. You're my little hellhound, aren't you? So, yeah, this was the first time I'd seen this or even heard about it. I literally had no idea what it was. And I wasn't expecting anything like Vampire Hunter D. You know, it's like, okay, it's an older anime. That's fine. Give it a shot. And, you know, giving it a shot. And then it just keeps going off the rails and into the ditch and into a ravine. And then it explodes at the very bottom. And I really want to see the Japanese version because I feel like a lot of it might have been localization, but now I'm really not sure.
Dan.
Like, I think that Frank Dracula came out was in the Japanese version.
Dan, I believe this was your first watch, right?
I thought it was. It wasn't. This came back to me when I watched it. But it's like late 80s, early 90s. I think I rented it as well. Didn't really remember much of anything, so it might as well have been my first time watch. I also was a big horror comics guy, not really so much anything else. I was actually Monster of Frankenstein, though, which oddly enough, I think was adapted into a movie the following year in 1981.
Yes.
And that I don't think I ever saw. So,
It's just
so
as
yeah.
confused. Yeah.
So this was basically my first watch because I had forgotten everything, and it taught me never start a relationship off with a lie. Don't tell your bride to be that you're Satan when you're not really Satan. It's just not a good idea.
Satan Lucifer.
Satan
Conversely,
Lucifer, yes.
conversely, if you know that your beloved is lying to you about being the devil, maybe mention that earlier. Mike.
Oh boy, yeah, it was my first time. I'm not a comic book person. I've read some, but I was never a collector. I was never like, oh, what's the next issue? You know, I'd see one occasionally pick up an issue, but I never kept up with the series of anything. I'd never seen this before. I enjoyed it though, because I am the lover of things unlovable, and this is quite unlovable. I mean, compared to like Vampire Hunter D, like Sam mentioned, and maybe a few others that are much better than this. But I enjoyed it because for me it was so bad it was good. It was hilarious. I mean, some of the dialogue, and we were talking a little bit before we went on here, and I don't know if it's the dub. I'd have to see the original, and do the read along adventure before I could really make up my mind. Some of the dialogue was just hilarious, and kicking out Blade for Scooby Don't. Great choice there, buddy. Yeah, the dog that literally like doesn't do anything. Yeah,
And is wrong more than once.
It's like, wow, the dog could be a weather dog, just as successful. But hilarious though. I mean, I love the whole angle where they went with the Vlad the Impaler bit. And he's such an asshole that Satan raises him from the dead and curses him to be a vampire. And then you got skip ahead a few centuries, and like Dracula's like cruising through America, like just looking to get into some trouble. And he's like, you know what, that Satan guy's a real asshole. I'm really pissed at him for what he did to me. And wait, what's that? But there's going to be a wedding. Oh, I'm going to get that asshole back. I'm going to swoop in, cock block him, steal his chick, and leave. Interesting concept there. And then what goes on further into the story, which it just gets crazier and crazier. But I was along for the ride, and I pretty much enjoyed every minute of it. The dialogue was hilarious in some spots. Satan finds out that Dracula stole his chick, and he's like, I'll wait a year before I do anything. That makes sense.
Well, it's a honeymoon period.
Yeah, I'll wait till Dracula like steals his girl and knocks her up. Satan's like, that's cool. I can wait a year. So there's a lot of weird, but the animation wasn't bad. It's just with the dub, I kind of felt like I was watching a combination of like Super Friends and Scooby Doo mixed with this Japanese anime, which was a very, very interesting mix. I mean, some of the dialogue was almost like out of like Dragon Ball Z kind of.
The narrator had the same cadence as the narrator in DBZ. That's what I noticed right away.
Yeah, it was like, wow, this is a really weird amalgamation of everything.
Was I the only one? Oh, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, meanwhile, back at Dracula's castle, like Super Friends type thing, and then you got Scooby Don't running around. It's like, wow, this is Hanna-Barbera meets DC and hell. This is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Jay, was this a first watch for you?
It was. I'm going to ask you guys a question. Did he ever finish that burger?
I think that Dracula eating a hamburger may be one of cinema's finest moments.
The meme lives on, my friend.
He had to mug somebody to get the money to buy the hamburger.
That is awesome too.
First time watch for me. It's very similar style, the animation style and everything, to a lot of stuff I've seen. So it feels familiar, but I don't think I'd ever seen it before.
Thank God for YouTube, huh? Christian.
Yeah, I mean, this may be hard to believe, but I had not seen this before. Look, I really liked it. I'm hearing everything Mike's saying and all, and I agree with him. You know, if I was a kid and I saw this, I would have. I know I would have loved it. But as an adult, within 5 minutes, I was like, let go of inhibitions and just be a kid watching this, and I did. And I did, and I loved it. I loved the way Satan looked. He was gigantic, and when he goes to get the bride out of the tomb, and her eyes go white, and the hands come out the ground, loved it, loved it. I was like, oh, that's my zombie fix right there. You know, that's cool. So I had a great time with it. I thought it was really fun. I'm sad I can't get a Blu-ray of this or whatever because I really liked it. This is the kind of movie when it's Halloween night, I would bring a little TV out on the front porch with me and let that play while kids come up and get candy and stuff. Like that's what I was thinking too. I was like, that'd be a fun little thing to just have playing in the background when the kids come up and get candy and all this. But I loved it. I really, really loved it.
So I hadn't seen it for many, many, many years. I always remembered it, but it was one of those things that back burner for all the right reasons, right? And when I decided that I didn't want to like make this series of videos just be me pick a foreign film and just we run with it. There's going to be a lot of that, sure, but I wanted it to also be artifacts and things that people probably just paved right over without noticing. And the funny thing is, watching it again to prepare for this, I'm closer to Christian than I was as a kid. I enjoyed this most recent watch more than ever before. And I've probably seen the film like 3 times in my life. So I think that's partially knowing what you're getting when you go in and also just embracing the absurdity. I mean, this movie covers 71 comic books over 90 minutes. Now, if you just do the quick math there, what is it giving itself? A minute and a 15th of a minute?
This explains a lot now.
It's a very fast-moving film. And they do get rid of a lot of subplots. And again, Blade is gone. Although I'm not sure if people would respond really well to Green Pants wearing Blade today, post Wesley Snipes. But I had a lot of fun with it. And I have a less than legal disc of it. It is something I'm going to find myself watching from time to time just for sheer shits and giggles. And certainly when I get people over, I'm going to share this motherfucker.
Did you know that Blade almost happened around the same time with Richard Roundtree? Shaft is Blade for New World Pictures, I believe. And it was going to be a Western, if memory serves.
Yeah, it was a couple years later. I think it was like 85. That project was. But that's the weird thing is like Blade was an extremely minor character. He's only in, I think, 6 issues, and they're not even conjoined issues. But he always had kind of a following, and movies have always wanted to adapt him. And he may be one of the more adapted Marvel characters at this point. I mean, that sounds crazy, but I don't think it really is. I mean, between the 3 movies, the television series, his animated appearances.
Yeah, the upcoming new one too, yeah.
Yeah. But yet we were not going to get a live action Tomb of Dracula film because of this one.
That's too bad.
That would just be a great joke to play on Hollywood. Just write a screenplay based on this, but maybe just don't call it necessarily Sovereign of the Damned. And just see if they'll make it.
Just call this Blade 4 and find out what happens?
Yeah.
Was I the only one that noticed on Janice's grave it says rest in P? If you look.
Janice?
Yes.
I didn't see that.
Janice.
I couldn't stop trying to I was continually trying to figure out if Janus didn't have eyes, his eyes were closed, or they were just pink for some reason. And I'm not 100% sure, but I know he can shoot lasers out of them and turn into a big yellow bird, so those are kind of cool. Maybe you don't need eyes if you have those other things?
You name your kid Janus, he's bound to rebel.
Is it also born on Christmas Eve, so Janus Christ.
Yeah, he just might be Jesus. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's not stated outright, but so does anyone have favorite characters in this thing?
I mean, Dracula for me. I loved him, and I like Satan too.
Say it so casually. I like Satan too.
I like the look of Dracula in this one. I don't know. It just brought me back to childhood so much, man. Because I probably watched a lot of mediocre anime stuff growing up and bad dubs. So to me, that's just like welcome home. You know, I just ate it up.
He may not serve a purpose, but I gotta go with Elijah, the vampire hunting dog. He doesn't do anything, but he's cuddly. He's got his little crucifix on. I mean, you gotta love Elijah.
He has one of the great scenes whereas he's trying to sniff out where Dracula is and they're following in the car behind him.
Yeah.
It's preposterous. It's crazy. So Rachel Van Helsing is the closest we've gotten of these characters to being on screen, because in Blade 3 there's a character who is her character played by I can't think of the actress's name.
Jennifer Biel.
Excuse me?
Jennifer Biel.
Yes, exactly.
Jessica Biel.
Jessica Biel. Sorry.
Yeah.
We'll get there. I guess.
Somebody else.
We'll get there.
One of them might have been in a dancing movie. But yeah, no, and I got to tell you, the other thing I loved is that as Sam was watching it, I get a message from her that says, Frank Dracula? Lauren, you're fucking kidding me, right?
It was goddamn it, Lord.
Okay.
But I was like, as soon as Frank Dracula pops up, I'm like, oh. I was like, no, that was kind of the point where I broke. And I stopped having expectations. Like, I didn't really have expectations to begin with, but then I was like, nope, we're done. I tried. I'm just going along for the ride now.
Did you love Torgo showing up as the big bad just because at the end with no setup whatsoever?
What was that about? I mean, I know he's in the comics, but
it's a subplot in the comic, whereas he was a competing Lord of the Vampires that wanted to be the Lord of the Vampires. But like, this movie does nothing to establish that he's out there at all. But then he suddenly is.
Yeah, and then he's suddenly super dead because Dracula just like does the drunk test. You know, when if you're testing somebody to see how drunk they are, you just go woo to their face, and he has it has that cross on it, and just nope, no problem, we're done. That vampire master that replaced me is gone. Okay, that was easy.
Never know what you're gonna get.
5 minutes.
The zombies seem very disappointed.
I was very confused with the zombies, with that whole part where where Dracula's trying to save those kids from the zombies, because I thought the zombies had turned into bats at some point, and Dracula was trying to get like a vampire to bite him so he could be a vampire again, because I guess love made him weak, and also Satan took away his power. And I'm just like, just let a zombie bite you.
So it's not established in the movie, but the Lilith character who he tries to get to make him a vampire is his daughter.
Oh.
I have something to say about her too.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, like Layla, Layla was interesting, but at the same time, there was one part where she's upset at Dracula because, her dinner ran off, right? And he was RH positive, and I'm like, Layla, that's literally almost every human. What are you talking about? RH negative is the one that's hard to find.
She might have food allergies. It might be the peanut, not the bread. That's the issue.
I'm not going to touch that one.
So, I mean, we got to talk about Janice. We just got to Janus. Were any of you expecting the superhero just to be in this movie? Because,
well, considering I was already kind of in the mood because of the Super Friends feel to the overall product, that did not surprise me at all. I was just happy he wasn't like one of the Wonder Twins. Although his getup was kind of reminiscent. It was by that point, so much strange shit has happened That it's just like oh, you just go with it. It's just like, oh, okay, all right, cool.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a dead baby. You know,
Yeah, oh.
heaven sends down an avatar. You know, the baby like powers up the super suit, and then he starts hunting down Dracula, which is his father, right? And it's just like, okay, I'm with it. I like Christian though. I think Dracula is my favorite character. He actually had kind of an arc. You know, he had a humanity to him, even for being an undead damned creature, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he wasn't really happy about it. He didn't ask for it. He kind of explains his backstory as to why he impaled people, you know, because they just wouldn't leave him alone, right? And he's trying to defend his shit. So he's like, I'll come up with something that'll make these assholes screw up, right? So they won't mess with me no more. I'll start sticking poles up their ass. That'll do it, right? That's logic. It worked. But then, you know, he dies, and then Satan's like, hey, you're not my bitch, and great. And he's pissed about it for like centuries, and then he cock blocks Satan, takes his chick, knocks her up, not knowing that Satan's bride is actually like has heaven powers, right? So now I'm just like, okay, this is awesome. You know, I need some popcorn. This is great. And because she's like some groupie chick that was lost, and she was just trying to find her way, and she thought it was a lark, and she's like, yeah, I'll be Satan's bride. It sounds like fun, guys. You know, let's just lark, you know. Yeah, so she didn't believe in any of it, and then, you know, and then Drax shows up, and it just kind of goes along for the ride. And I like the fact that because she had that, I don't know, heavenly goodness in her or whatever, it kind of softened him a little bit. So he was going to just like, you know, tear her up and whatever. Fuck you, Satan. You know, but he like actually, she humanized him in a way that he had forgotten about how it felt to be human. And I think, you know, that was kind of a cool little character turn for him. And he actually was into the whole dad thing, you know, and it's, I don't know. I like the Dracula character. He kind of got the shit end of the stick at every turn in this movie. I mean, you know, you got Dracula, this really, you know, badass vampire guy, and he's getting shit from everybody. You know, he's getting fucked over left and right. And then Satan takes his powers away, and he's got to eat a cheese. He's got to mug some dude to get a cheeseburger, right? And then he goes to that chick in New York. He's like, "Hey, I lost my powers. You know, and she's like, yeah, get the hell out of here, you loser. And he's on his own. And then he goes, digs up some chick somewhere else, I guess Transylvania or wherever that was. And then she's like, oh, you're not the Lord of the Vampires anymore, you know. And then this other guy comes out of nowhere. And he's got to defeat him to get his powers back, but he doesn't have any powers. And then the guy in the wheelchair like has a nuke or something. I was just like, this is fucking great. And somehow in the process of fighting the guy, and I don't even remember, but he was. I didn't think those were zombies. I thought they were vampires, right? That were raised from the dead. To I don't know, maybe they were zombies. At that point, who gave a shit? It was just great. But you know, the super religious kids, you know, and he's in there with them, and he's trying to battle the whatever they were, and then he like grabs a cross and somehow some of that cross power like rubbed off on his hand, even though he wasn't evil anymore, but it still burnt him. And he had that impression, and he got in a fight with that guy, and then he like slams his hand into him, and the cross residue like killed the new Lord of the Vampires. And then Dracula gets pissed off because he's like, I'm either being used by heaven or hell. And it's basically like, screw everybody. And then he goes back home and suddenly gets his powers back. Like he just walks through the door and boom, bang.
All I had to do is go home.
That was easy. And then the psycho with the nuke in the wheelchair shows up. You know, he's like, look, dude, I just got home. Really? It's like he can't catch a break, man. Dracula is just like, man, that poor dude. I felt so bad for him by the end of the movie.
I love the fact that Quincy Harper is in a wheelchair for the whole movie, but then like just casually gets out of it anyway.
Yeah.
We don't establish why.
And he like pulls the spoke out of his wheelchair. It's like pure silver. It stabs him. You didn't need to do that. You got a nuke. What the hell?
You want to be careful. You want to be sure, man.
And then
I kept picturing Jane.
Apparently, Janus can like sense that the Dracula's dead. I was like, all right, he's dead. I'm out of here later. You know, and then like her baby's alive again, so she gets to live out the rest of her life as the mother of Janus. And you know, the superhero part of him goes back to heaven, but now he's like a regular baby, or who cares? It was great.
That was the best movie summary I've ever heard.
And
Yeah,
you may
hopefully that was
feel
on the back of the VHS box.
Yes.
and you may feel like you don't need to watch the movie now because of all that. Mike actually skipped over stuff.
Yeah, I left a lot there to be enjoyed.
For half the movie, I thought the kid's name was Jeebus.
Well, you might not be wrong.
I kept picturing him as the villain from Superman 4, Captain Atomic or something. That's kind of how I kept picturing him in my head.
Not Bizarro. Yeah.
He reminded me of one of those just random Marvel superheroes that had a series that had maybe like seven issues, and then that was it, and never showed up ever again. But every now and then you'll still find those issues in the comic shop, but they're just lost to time. That's what it felt like. It was just it was weird. It was kind of like weirdly out of place. That outfit.
I wanted the Elijah spinoff. Now that would have been money.
Elijah do.
Yes.
The dog is not in the comic books. I'll spoil that for you if you're going to go out there and pay way too much for the out of print trade paperbacks. There's 3 volumes that collect the whole thing, and they're like all like $300 if you can find them now.
Oh wow.
But I think we need to talk about the fact that this is an animated film that shoots a infant at point blank range.
Thank you.
You goddamn right it does.
Dracula sucks being a protector. It's like
He just his way of his son.
I know. It's like he's in front of Dolores holding Janus to protect them from this gun, but then it's got a silver bullet in it, and then the cult leader dude shoots the gun, and he just pieces out of there.
Yeah.
And let's get shot. Like you're bad at this.
Let's think about Dracula's mindset at the time. All right, Satan is the original person that fucked him over, so he's looking for protection for his kid. Now, this is a kid that he fathered with the woman that was supposed to be Satan's bride. So he goes to Satan for protection of his son. It's like not real. The whole idea wasn't real smart, you know? So the fact that the kid gets capped is not a shocker. I mean, can you imagine if Satan actually would be like, wait a minute. Let me get this straight. Okay. You steal my chick, you knock her up. Now you're afraid that your kid's in trouble. So you're going to bring him to me for protection? And how am I not supposed to tell you to go fuck yourself? You know, the whole idea was completely flawed. So yeah, the fact, you know, and of course the kid has to die the further the plot, otherwise he wouldn't be able to come back as the superhero, right?
Uh-huh.
And then it all ends well because the kid, he's alive at the end of the movie. But yeah, it was just the whole scenario in that spot was just so. What the hell were you thinking? That was like the least of what I was thinking of. I was just like, really? Okay.
I'm just impressed that a 45 slug stopped inside an infant's body. It didn't go through mom as well.
Good point.
Well, apparently mom was under protection from the other side.
Well, but we don't know that yet, right?
Well, because she was going to kill herself at the grave, and that's when the lights appeared, and a voice spoke to her, and that's when Janus appeared, in superhero form, right?
Right.
So apparently there was some guiding protection going on throughout her life that she didn't acknowledge or recognize or notice. So
that's why her baby got killed, and then she had to learn her lesson that way.
Apparently, yeah, she apparently had to learn the value of life by the loss of the child. That this movie's so batshit that really trying to attach logic to any one of its plot points is kind of asinine, really. It's great though.
That's exactly right. It's great though.
I mean, literally, the movie starts with suggesting that he and Vampire Bat form just flew from Transylvania to New York, so to Boston. I'm sorry. So right off the bat, we're in Twilight Land, man.
Yeah, at the beginning where they're talking about his native Europe, just the whole continent. He's from all of it, guys.
That's as
And then it's
specific
just
as they'd like to get.
And that opening cult scene where those cult members are late because their Jeep was caught in traffic.
Yes.
This was the worst Stonecutters meeting I've ever seen.
What was the rating on the VHS, Lauren? I'm curious because I mean, pikes up the ass, dead babies. I mean,
it's Vestron. They didn't bother with a rating for this thing. But the
Oh,
amazing
okay.
thing is, I mean, this thing hit cable, and it wasn't like HBO. It hit like cable. So I don't know. I remember it's weird because I believe this thing actually was drawn for widescreen. So no one has seen it in its proper ratio aspect. That's why we desperately need that 4K UHD remastered, color corrected, ultimate collector's edition of Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned.
Mm-hmm.
We need this injustice corrected.
If we scream about it on the internet, somebody will pay attention to us.
Christian, people watch your channel, man. Come on, lean into that for us.
You're right. I'll too. I was gonna mention this too. It's kind of off topic, but it's not. After I've watched the movie, that's the first thing I did was because I wasn't aware that it really wasn't available. Although I see on eBay some bootleg stuff, and I say to myself, "Oh, what is this? 1981 Monster of Frankenstein. This looks like a kind of the same thing." I haven't watched it yet, but I can't wait. I love the way the monster looks, and it's supposed to be an adult theme, deadly type of movie too, right?
Oh yeah, it's very
I'm
similar.
can't wait to watch it. It's on YouTube. I'm looking at it right now. They have the TV English dub. I don't know if it's the same channel or not that put this Dracula one up, but it's feature length. It's an hour 30.
Thankfully, there wasn't as many issues of Monster of Frankenstein as there was of Tomb of Dracula, so there wasn't as much to speed through. But it's still bizarre.
Good.
And Werewolf at Night never got his adaptation. The character does appear at the end of Blade 3, but he never got his animated film,
Damn shame.
which would have been just as horrifying and wonderful. So, who, if anyone, would you suggest watch this movie?
Watch it if you're in an altered state of mind, and you can choose whatever substance you would prefer for that.
it's my favorite animated movie I've watched in a long time, and that's not really my thing. I'm not a big animation guy. I was entertained by this. I think everybody should watch it, just for Elijah, if nothing else.
You need a shirt with Elijah on it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm gonna find that. It's got to exist somewhere.
We'll make it. And
Yeah,
if it
It's going to be my Teespring store.
Jay called dibs, so I'll buy it off there.
So Christian is going to be playing it for his trick-or-treaters, which means his old Cathay Ray television is going to be being thrown through a window back into his house at some point next Halloween.
Yeah. I think everybody should watch it, man. Like, it was why not? You know what I mean? Why not? Take a break from your regular stuff, give it a shot. I loved it, and I'm still on a Dracula kick. This started a couple months ago for me, and I can't get enough of them. I just can't get enough Dracula. So I say go for it. I want Pizzile to watch it. How about that? Pizzile, get off your ass and watch Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned.
It's not a late '90s slasher film, so I don't know.
Tell them it is.
Jay, who would you suggest watch this film?
Women, children, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, everyone.
Do you think this film? I mean, obviously, Marvel would never make something like this today, for good and for bad, right? But this thing has personality. It feels like something, like someone had a vision, not a vision that anyone else would have come up with, but it has a vision. I've always said that the Marvel films that exist today, there's nothing technically wrong with them. They're very, very, very competent at every stage. but they don't really feel like much, right? They don't seem to have any authorship to them. Whereas this thing is like the diametric opposite, where this is too much personality almost. Like this is the neighbor who's knocking on your door a little too often, right? You wonder if they've ever bought eggs or milk because they're always borrowing it from you.
Yeah, this has many different visions, and it's a little hard to keep up with, but I'm not going to fault it for being boring. It's definitely not boring. It's very entertaining. It's entertaining just for... There's just random things that I picked up in the scenes with, that when nothing was going on. When, I think it's at the beginning of the movie, when we're going through what looks like Dracula's castle, and there's the opening narration, and you're seeing all these... I guess they're sculptures, I'm not sure if they're meant to be demons or different interpretations of Dracula or Satan or whatever. But one of them has a frog on its shoulder, and I was only a couple of minutes in. I had to stop. I had to hit pause. I was like, really? A frog? And then when the vampire hunters, who are completely useless except for Harker, and only because his wheelchair explodes. I mean, the exploding wheelchair is my favorite character. So those vampire hunters are useless. But when, they're tracking his victims, they're talking about, it seems like Dracula is being more cautious. And then they look at the map, and the pattern of his victims is a giant bat. That's not being cautious. It's not keeping a low profile, buddy.
I thought that was badass. I was like, oh, hell yeah, it's badass.
That marks the spot.
I think this was...
I enjoyed the talk of liquidating Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
In a perfect world, Lauren, maybe Shudder could get these somehow. Go to the vault to find these, become Shudder originals, but Shudder, what do you call it?
I can't imagine Disney ever allowing this thing to find its way to market. I mean, they have to have some rights over it at this point because they own all Marvel properties. I don't know. So, how did you guys like the portrayal of disco in the film? Because I think it's one of the better disco scenes ever.
I thought it was fine and appropriate, considering it's been 500 years since. I mean, in the story itself, it's been 500 years, I guess, since he's been a vampire / dead. Mm-hmm. So it's like, corresponds to 1977 approximately. So it's like, that makes sense. Vlad Tepes died in 1477. I'm just here for the accuracy.
She's trying to get it out.
Well, it's not any more out of place than EDM and Blade, right? I mean, Blade's got that huge sequence in the dance hall with the blood and everything. So it seemed appropriate. I don't know again. 5 minutes in, it's like, oh, this is different. This is going to be one of those type of flicks, right? So if you're into those type of flicks, I mean, there's Hellsing and Hellsing Ultimate. This is not the same. The animation's good. I did appreciate some of the animation. I thought it was well done. You could tell it. Was it kind of chopped up? Were there pieces missing? Characters kind of disappear type thing? Like, I don't know. Was it a longer, 2 hours, and they cut it down to 90 minutes? Because it seemed a little disjointed in places, but animation was great. But who would I recommend it to? I don't know, anybody that likes weird shit. I mean, it's funny. It's not scary at all. It's hilarious.
No, it's awesome. Yeah,
I mean, I could see this easily becoming a cult classic.
Yeah, it's got all the earmarks. I mean, if you're a fan of Microwave Massacre or Basket Case or Pieces or something just crazy, dumb shit, great. Yeah, I would definitely say take a look at it. I mean, I think I can see myself watching it. I downloaded it from YouTube, so I can burn it down on a disc, and I'll take a look at it occasionally, see if I can pick up on some new stuff. Because the dub and the dialogue and the vocal intonations were killing me. Some of Satan's dialogue was hilarious. I mean, it's like, what? Okay, I'm going, but I'm gonna have to watch it again just so because I'm probably so distracted by that one thing that I missed 5 other things. So definitely highly entertaining and worth multiple watches.
Satan does kind of come off as like middle management at the Costco's.
Yeah,
Yeah,
very much.
you know, the whole thing is, I know he's a pest and all. Let's give him a year, and then I want you to destroy him. It's kind of like you set a goal, and then you say when you're going to check back on him, and then you follow up, right? It's traditional management.
But then you got the head priestess of the Satan cult.
I love him in his mask.
In his mask, yeah, but it's again like with Scooby Doo. When the mask comes off, it's like the pathetic janitor.
Exactly.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like here's this big scary guy, and he's just like this little old wrinkled dude. That's like you could flick him on the nose and it would knock him out. You know, it's like wow, that wasn't much of a threat. Great though, it's very entertaining.
But he does get to murder an infant at point blank range. So
he shoots the shit out of a baby. That's for sure.
I actually think this is way better than Wonder Woman 84. I mean, that movie I thought was more ridiculous and not fun. So I would put this up against any superhero thing in the last 5 years, honestly. I think it's a great movie.
It's definitely better than Wonder Woman 84, 100%. That movie
Yes.
is painfully bad.
I haven't seen it, but I mean, I'd take a bullet by that statement as well. Screw it.
You'd rather be Danis taking that bullet than have to watch Wonder Woman 84.
I'll take that bullet.
all right. Well, I think we have covered Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned. The movie is available on YouTube. That could change at any time, though, guys. So I would jump on it when you watch this video immediately afterwards. All the craziness we've discussed is really just the tip of the iceberg when you're experiencing it. It's one thing to hear a bunch of jackasses talk about the movie, but the movie really is wilder than its reputation. This is one of those rare cases where you're not going to be underwhelmed. Again, I'm not going to say you're going to love the movie necessarily, but you'll never have seen anything like it. I think that's fair to say. And it's unlikely they'll ever make anything like it ever again. So anyone have any final words about Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned?
Hail Dolores, bride of Satan.
Yes.
What she said.
I'm ready to watch Monster of Frankenstein now.
Yes.
All right. All right, then. Thanks, guys, for joining me. And with this, we will have another Obscurity report next month, title to be announced. Again, from a different part of the world, a different time, a different place. Thank you, guys. See you later.
Blech.